Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we are going to look at the subreddit r/entitledparents, where people tell us their stories of crazy mums and dads who think they're entitled just because they have kids. If you're new around here, please do hit subscribe down below so that you never miss out on another video. But for now, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy some Reddit stories. Entitled mother demands school give my scholarship to her daughter, and a fight breaks out. The cast: Karen, not her real name obviously, me, Mary, Karen's daughter, not that entitled, Mum, my mother, Anna, best friend who's known me since preschool, Anna's mum, the best friend's mum, GC, guidance counselor, and random dad, some other student's dad. I live in the US in a small town, and when I was a young kid, I was close friends with the girl who lived next door. However, her mother was a little off, to say the least, and didn't hesitate to make it obvious her dislike of me and my family. I wouldn't find out why until I was an adult, and it was explained to me by another friend who we'll call Anna. Basically, my parents smoke pot, a lot of it, to the point where they would practically be hotboxing the entire downstairs every morning. But both of them are extremely hardworking and successful, so I don't blame them. I grew nose blind to the smell, but as my friend Anna explained to me, when we were older, I would show up to school almost every day, reeking of it, even though I never physically touched the stuff until I was an adult. I'm also on the autism spectrum, but it's hard to notice save for some social awkwardness and inability to make eye contact. However, when combined with the smell of pot, people assume something else entirely. Other parents in our neighborhood noticed it, but other than them making random excuses when trying to plan a sleepover at my house, they never treated me any differently. Without the exception of my Anna's mum, who would always try to bring me to church with them. Love you, other mum. Not Karen. She made it clear I was beneath both her and Mary, and boy, did she let me know it. She always tried to push her to do better than me at everything, even when we were friends. We ended up drifting apart due to differing interests as we got older, but there was no animosity except for Karen. It hurt, but I felt more bad for Mary than I did for myself. Karen was crazy strict and abusive to Mary, one of those insane tiger mum helicopter parents. This will be an important detail later. It was so bad to the point where if my parents caught us doing something wrong as kids in the backyard, me and my sister would beg our mum not to tell Karen out of fear of what she might do to Mary, and our mum would always agree. See, here's the thing about Mary. Both Karen, her husband, and Mary's younger sister are very, very pale, whereas Mary is very, very obviously mixed race. Strangely, Karen's husband was the much nicer of the two and seemed to love Mary dearly. I feel bad for him. He was a nice guy, but he had this nervous laughter demeanor that some men have when their wives have made them terrified of everything. I'm convinced the only reason he put up with it is because he loves his daughters so much. The state I live in, students in public schools have to take a series of standardized tests every year up until grade 10. In the final year, the scores of the students are grouped together and the top 25% of students are given a tuition waiver to any state school of their choosing. Come senior year, the scholarship recipients are announced at the end of the year on senior night, with all the students and their parents present. When the names were called, me and a few dozen other students were listed for the tuition waiver, but Mary wasn't. She received a few small grants and, I believe, a few scholarships, just not that particular one. Well, Karen was furious. See, Mary actually had a higher student ranking than me. She was in the top 25% graduating GPAs, where I wasn't. This was due to me being really sick and missing out a lot of school first term and struggling to make up all the work, but I digress. My mum and I were walking out of the auditorium when we see Karen screaming at the guidance counselor. "So, you're telling me these were decided 2 years ago?" Yes ma'am. That particular scholarship is awarded based on the state standardized test scores, which are taken at grade 10. So, you're telling me all the hard work my daughter did is useless because some crack baby pothead is good at taking tests? How do you know she didn't cheat? Ma'am, the tests are held in a controlled room strolled by proctors. Your daughter took the exact same test. Now, I'm going to ask you to calm down and lower your voice, or I will call the resource manager. Karen stares at him for a moment before huffing and storming out, presumably towards her family. I thought that was the end of it, until we got into the parking lot. Me and my mum were going out to dinner with Anna and her mum, and our mums were off to the side chatting against Anna's mum's car, while me and Anna were sitting in the front seats of my car a few cars down. All of a sudden, we hear a tapping on the window. I look up to the ugly face of Karen. Instinctively and stupidly, I roll down the window. So, are you excited for your 3 years of partying before you become a hobo? Excuse me? You must be excited. You get to screw around for free, party, and do drugs while all the hardworking deserving students lose an opportunity. I should point out now that's not how tuition waivers work. And to maintain this particular scholarship, I had to maintain a high GPA. I don't party or do drugs. Don't give me that crap. Everyone in town knows what you are and what you do. It's disgusting, frankly. Just as I was about to reply, Anna's and my mum run over. Get away from them now. Why? So she can grow up being a half-dead zombie like you? If you don't get away from my daughter, the only one that's going to be half dead is you. Oh, and another thing. Karen lunged at my mum, but my mum grabbed her arms and slammed her against the side of the car before wailing on her, and Anna's mum joined in. Meanwhile, me and Anna were too terrified to get out of the car. After a few minutes, a few men came and pulled Karen away from our mums, but that didn't stop her from screaming. I'm going to call the cops. I'm sure they will like what they find when they search your house. A random dad then chimes in. And I'm sure they'll be very interested in our statements of how you harassed these two girls and then tried to attack their mother. He probably thought we were sisters. Another man then chimes in. If I were you, I would start running real fast. She did actually start running, but the resource officer caught her before she could get to her car. He handcuffed her, and soon more cop cars show up and start questioning everyone. Luckily, enough present saw what happened that my mum didn't get in trouble. Karen ended up doing community service and lost her job at a neighbouring school district. I guess picking fights on school property isn't a good idea for students nor faculty. P.S. Mary ended up getting away from Karen, and after a hard college partier, I'm finally free of my crazy mother phase. She graduated and is doing very well now. It's good to hear that Mary's doing well now and she graduated and has got away from her because she was just crazy. Kid hurt my animal and mum says it doesn't matter because it's not a dog. So I show and raise goats and they're my everything. I basically treat them like my own children and they're spoiled as ever. It was a country fair, which meant that people could come through the barns and see the animals. I didn't have any shows that day, so I was kind of just hanging out in the barn and talking to some friends, and it's partly our job to inform the public on the animals there, and I noticed a family hanging out around my goat's pen. I walk over there and say hi, and ask if they had any questions, and was met with something much different. So, if you don't know, goats' horns grow as the goat ages, and their horns when they're younger grow in layers, and sometimes the new layers appear flaky as they haven't fully hardened yet. It's new growth, so it tends to be sensitive and itchy. Anyway, the pens tend to be quite small because they're only temporary, so the goats can't really get away from the hands of people if they feel overwhelmed. The children were in the pens with the goats in flip-flops. Not only is that against the rules to go in the pens with the animals, unless they belong to you, but without shoes is incredibly dangerous. The kids were pulling pieces of hair out of the goat's tail, pulling on the ears, and ripping chunks of her horns, the new growth, off. The mother was just browsing her phone, not paying any attention to her 3 crotch goblins. I approached and, despite me being very angry, very kindly talked to the kids. You need to get out of these pens immediately, or you could get hurt. You don't know these goats or if they're friendly. Nuh-uh, these are my goats, and I can do whatever I want. Yeah, Mummy said all the animals belong to us because they are here for us to enjoy. Well, they're not yours, they belong to me, and you have to leave the pens or you could get kicked out of the fair. You're hurting the goat and you need to stop. No, it likes it, see? The kid pulled another's piece off her horn and then she tried to back away to the corner of the pen and thrash her head around to get away. You need to stop now. The kid saw how angry I was and finally left the pen, but then Karen looked up from her phone. What the hell are you doing to my kids? What do you mean? You put them in danger by letting them come into the animals' pen without permission. My children can do what they want. These animals belong to the public. I point to the sign with bold letters. Do not go in animal pens. These animals belong to the people who brought them here. Your children were hurting my goats, and they were at risk of getting stepped on. I am not the one at fault. No, I will not have some stupid child tell me what to do. These animals don't matter anyway. They're just sheep. They're not sheep goats. And are meant to die anyway. Who cares if they hurt the animals? They don't care. They're just animals. Animals don't care. They don't have feelings. And my children wanted to play with the sheep. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the barns then. Absolutely not. They're just sheep. It's not like an important animal like a dog or something. I called the barn supervisor and they called security and escorted the woman from the fair. My goat was bleeding and had to be taken home from the fair for treatment. It wouldn't have been a huge deal except they really destroyed the new growth on her horns, and despite what people think, the horns are very important for the animals. I was pretty furious, but my goat is okay now and as happy as ever. Oh, and then they linked a picture of the goat, which is really cute. Entitled Mother and my orange sunglasses. So you might remember me from the entitled mother wanting to use my balcony story. I had another run-in with an entitled mother today while I was at the park for lunch. I live and work in downtown Chicago, and my office is close enough to the Grant Park where I can go to take lunch there and enjoy sitting on the grass or in the trees for a bit. I have a few pairs of cheap orange sunglasses from a summer festival last year that I love. Orange is my favorite color, and I wear them all around the city. Well, today at lunch, I was just minding my own business. Just reading in the shade under a tree with the sunglasses resting on top of my head. I was a bit off the paved path, but still close enough to where people were around me at times. An entitled kid and entitled mother entered the scene and set up a blanket to have a picnic, and I thought that was cute and went back to reading. Maybe 15 minutes later, it got a bit brighter out, so I put the sunglasses back on and kept reading, and wasn't really paying attention to my surroundings cause the book, Hyperion, is so good. I start to see a shadow out of my left eye and see the entitled kid coming closer to me, maybe within 3 feet with his hand out like he was reaching for my glasses. I looked up and took them off and put them into my shirt pocket and asked if he was lost. He looked like he was maybe 6 or so and asked if he could have my glasses. I nicely told him no, and he made that pouty face and went back to his mum. I paused my music at this point and was just waiting for the entitled mother to come walking over, and I kid you not, no more than 30 seconds later, she was standing in front of me with her hand out telling me to give her my glasses. She said something along the lines that she said her kid could have my glasses and I need to give them to her this instant as she was an adult. I'm 32 by the way, and the grey hair shows it lol. So I tell her no, these are mine and she can kindly screw off. She did not like that at all, and started yelling at me, so I just turned my music back on and started packing up. The kid saw this and started to cry, and she got mad at me for making my kid cry, and now demanded that I give them to her because of what I did. Well, I'm kind of a jerk, and just ate a full burrito from Qdoba. So when I stood up, I let out a pretty loud fart and just turned and walked through the grass back towards the path. The fart must have stunned her, because by the time I was at the path, she was still standing where I was with her kid, now screaming and stomping his feet. Some people are the worst. I don't know why I find that ending so funny. I can just imagine the fart and like making a smoke screen effect and her just disappearing in thin air. Hey everyone, I hope you all had a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now or check out the playlist down below. If you enjoyed that video, then please do leave a like. And if you want to submit your own stories, then you can do so by joining the Discord in the top link in the description. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon.